Third race weekend for the BMW IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Cup. We're in Innsbruck in Austria, and as in Sigulda, it is a double two-man race weekend. Welcome back, everybody, to our coverage of round 6 of the BMW IBSF two-man bobsleigh World Cup. After 4 races in 2 weeks in Sigulda, we'll have 4 races in 2 weeks here in Austria as well. After winning on Saturday in our first heat, Johannes Lochner is lying in second place, but he is in the middle of a tight podium battle. As yesterday, the same 3 names in the frame. Bronze medalist on Saturday, in third place on Sunday. Oskars Kibermanis with Mats Miknis behind him. The Latvian in definite medal contention, and as yesterday, there's a big break between third and fourth place, but only 0.15 of a second cover the top 3. Yanko Lochner won yesterday. Eric Francesco pulled up with a hamstring tear after the winning run, and he has been replaced by Christian Rasp, who has moved over and back onto Hansi's sled for today. They lie in second place, and they are just 0.05 of a second off the lead. Francesco Friedrich and Torsten Margis coming into this weekend had an enviable record. They had won the last 6 straight races on this track together, including the 26 World Championships, 2016 World Championships, but they lead here by 0.05 of a second, trying to avenge themselves for yesterday's defeat. Well, yesterday was a strange one. Johannes Lochner won by 0.3 of a second over second place, and that was remarkable for a short fast track like Eagles, or a short close track like Eagles. Lochner is 0.05 behind. The battle is definitely between the top 3 for a medal. Rostislav Gaitiukevich, the silver medalist in the Junior Worlds in two-man, is lying in a very strong 4th position. And behind him, Dominik Dvorak, Christoph Hafer, Brad Hall, a massive logjam of sleds down from effectively 5th place to 12th place. Well, there is the man who is looking to try and take his 7th win in 7 seasons on this track, in 8 races in 7 seasons. But in fact, by the time we get to the Christmas break, he could have another 2 opportunities to win. He could be up to 9 wins in 7 years, which I don't think would ever have happened on any other World Cup track. It's been an unusual year in all sorts of ways for everybody, 2020, but the IBSF and all the athletes, all the teams, the national federations, the race organisers have worked really hard on maintaining hermetic bubbles between the athletes. Everybody masked up on site at all times. Lots and lots of COVID testing has been going on to try and make sure there's not either infections within the teams or that they're taking it around Europe with them. It seems to have been successful so far. We look forward to that continuing into next weekend. Here is our start list. We go from 20 down to 1 in reverse order of the first heat. The only sled that didn't make it through from heat 1, Rudy Rinaldi of Monaco. He was sitting in at the start, and that is the case here as well. The cloud is descending over the track at Eagles as we get ready for the second and final heat, race 6 of the BMW IBSF two-man bobsleigh World Cup. And again, Mihai Tentea of Romania having to sit in. He's got a bit of an injury niggle, and he is being hauled off the top by Raul Dobre. They started 5.77 in the first heat. The brakemen not only have to do all the work, but carrying an extra 65, 75, whatever it is, kilos, maybe 85 in the front of the sled as well. So 5.86 getaway for Mihai Tentea. As with Rudy Rinaldi of Monaco, who also had to sit in yesterday and today, it's about not aggravating the injury and trying to get as many World Cup points as you can. Tentea raced in Romania, so he is well up in the World Cup points. He was in 8th place coming in here yesterday, and he wants to hang on to that top 10 position. Nice smooth drive as ever from the young Romanian. And he comes down across the line, 53.66. So he's got a good driver's ability. He's one of the smaller athletes, shorter, lighter. That means that his sled tends to be heavier and harder to move off the line, particularly when the brakeman's doing all the work himself. Nice exit there. as he comes past our wall camera. Let's take a look from the outside. Gets the runners nicely straightened up. It's a little bit of a skid from 9 down to 10. Lights are on the track as usual, and that's going to be important as we get to the end of our run in an hour or so's time. We are losing the light. Sun goes behind the mountains quite early in the afternoon here in Eagles. Next up, Great Britain's Lamindine and James de Solo. James, a new addition to the team this season. 33-year-old sprinter joining Lamindine's crew. Coached by Pete Gunn there, back in harness. These guys started 5:23 in the first heat, 15th best start. James in his first World Cup weekend. And he had half a dozen bobsleigh races before this, so really learning the technique. Very individual way of pushing things. It's not a supermarket trolley. 5:36 getaway. There'll be a lot of speed that the brakeman will find from technique, from learning how to use the weight of your body, the leverage of those long arms and legs to get the most out of your initial forward movement. That doesn't come instantly. Better speed than the Romanians. And 2 seconds up, 100.2 kilometers an hour. It's not bad speed at all, but a long skid from 9 to 10 waves some of that away. Down into the lower labyrinth. It's a short run here, just over 52 seconds for these guys. And a 52.60, that puts him into the lead. Mihai Tentea will go back and think about next week. More training next week, 2 races next weekend for the Romanians and for everybody else to do here. And Tentea will have to try and nurse the injury as best he can. Nice smooth exit from Lamindine from the Kreisel down into turn 8. And Exeter 9 here just got a little late off. And so the back of the sled moving around. James de Solo, for a sprinter, is a big unit. There's a lot of power in that man. And that means a lot of mass out of the back as well. Russia's Alexey Stulnev and Roman Koshelev next up. Well, Stulnev in yesterday's race finishing in 14th position. He is 17th after the first heat here. In fact, he is tied with Mikkel Vogt of Switzerland. Mikkel Vogt yesterday finished in 4th place equal. Stulnev with a 5:25 getaway, 5:20 in the first heat. Stulnev's been a pretty decent top 10 driver over the last couple of seasons for Russia. Not quite sure why it's not working too well for him here in Innsbruck. Not feeling it yesterday or today. He will definitely need to do something in training next week to get himself sorted out for next weekend. Right now, he's been made to look very much second-class citizen by his young teammate. Alexey Stulnev knows his way down here. Again, look at the way that brakeman almost dives forward, drives forward into the gap in the sled between the edges of the cowl, just using that forward motion to break the inertia of the sled. Out of turn 9. Look at the runner tips. Absolutely nothing happening there, just watching it all the way down into corner 10. Hands of a surgeon. That's what you need. It's not all about big movements. Well, next up is Switzerland's Mikkel Vogt. Very different day today from yesterday. Yesterday in 4th equal position. And today in 17th equal position. What a difference 24 hours can make. 5:27 getaway, 100 slower than their first start. Through corner 2, the Omega turn. Down into another long 180-degree corner, turn 3. Now into the upper labyrinth. 3-corner section, 4 and 5. Corner 6 here, which feeds you down the short chute. Starting to pick up speed into the Kreisel. 98 kilometers an hour, just under 62 miles an hour. And then decent speed on the exit is really important, especially if you get it wrong off 9 and hit the wall going down into 10. He's ahead of Alexey Stulnev. Don't forget they were tied to the 100th, a little late off 11. Safely down across the line, 1600s up. Better run, 52.48 in the first heat, 52.33 in the second heat. Stulnev's 2 runs, a 48 and a 49. So Stulnev found nothing that he could tidy up, or if he did, he made other mistakes. Mihai Vogt, not the same drives as yesterday. You wonder whether that's the weather changing, the track changing, whether they didn't get the runner choices right, whether their runner choices restricted and they had to run what they ran yesterday, but the weather wasn't suitable for them. All sorts of questions. It didn't look wildly that much different from yesterday's driving. Just didn't quite have the speed anywhere. Well, next week is another week. Next weekend, 2 more 2-man races before Christmas. 4-man races, 4-man sleds will be rusty. Next up, Mattia Variola and Lorenzo Bilotti of Italy. 8 fastest starts from these two in the first heat. And that's perhaps not a surprise. Mattia, a front-running brakeman for the Italian squad for a number of years. Only his second season, full season of driving. Ooh, just avoids the short wall on the inside. 5:18 getaway again. Top 10 starts. Little skid out of turn 2 down to turn 3. And it's here where you give the speed away that it counts so much. It's such a big percentage of your overall velocity. Little rattle from 6 down into 7, the Kreisel. 270-degree whip around. 1100s up on Mihai Vogt. Oh, 9 to 10, just about gets away with that. Should carry a little bit more speed than the Swiss sled. There's not much of that lead left alive. He's a little late down in the labyrinth as well. Across the line, he does lose time as a result. 52.39. Drops behind. A little thumbs up there from coach Manny Mahata, who I understand has recently become a dad. So congratulations to him. And to mum. And welcome to, not sure if it's a baby son or a baby daughter, but 2 or 3 months old anyway. Well, there's a little skid and a tap out of corner 6. Means he has to steer on the Kreisel to hold the line he wants instead of spearing up to the roof. Sort of knows the sled, distinctly changed direction. Again here on 9. Watch the runner tips. He steered a little early, changed his mind. Just released the steer. That held it up on the wall a bit longer than would have been ideal. Mihai Vogt leading from Mattia Variola and Alexey Stulnev. 5 sleds down, 15 to go on a misty afternoon in Innsbruck. Race 6 of the BMW IBSF 2-man bobsleigh World Cup. Mattia Variola just dropped 500s behind Mihai Vogt of Switzerland. Next up is his own teammate, Patrick Baumgartner. Baumgartner was 700s ahead of Vogt, 600s ahead of Variola, and he keeps his head above water in the battle between them. Very close group of sleds. We had 4 covered by just 700ths of a second. Alexey Stulnev has already dropped back, so too has Mattia Variola. So can Vogt pick up another one here? Baumgartner 1300ths of a second in front. He's maintaining that advantage. 9 to 10 he skids, but so did Vogt. Out of 10 into the labyrinth. Looks like he's on time in 11. Smoother run. This should help build his advantage to the line. And he doesn't, but he comes across the line. 500s up, 52.35 slide. And always try and get the sled stopped before you run out of ice. Eric Fantazzini, the new brakeman to the team, making his World Cup debut this weekend. And they started 5:24 in the first heat, 5:24 in the second. So a little late exit there. Again, just hanging on to 9. What, a meter maybe longer than would be perfect. But at this speed, 75 miles an hour, that's where the devil is, in the detail, those tiny judgments. Look at the way that the runners bounce around. You think, oh, they're on ice. The runners will always be on the ice. Nope, not at all. Next up, Austria's Markus Schreichel with Gregor Glaboniat behind him. Gregor making his first World Cup start of the season. Marcus raced yesterday. The Austrians, like a number of others in the field, good to go to the opening race weekend in Sigulda. So they've been training here in Innsbruck and also doing Europa Cup races. Now the jury will be looking at the visibility. Sight lines on the track are short. You don't have to see 200 or 300 meters in front of you. 10 or 20 is often as much as you get between the corners. But they will want to make sure that the drivers do have enough visibility to make the race fair. Talked about this in the first heat with the potential of a change of the weather. I was thinking more of snow than of mist and cloud. A first heat run always has to be, hopefully, a race winner as much as a second heat run. You don't want to lay up and then save the big guns for heat 2 in case it doesn't happen. Still in the red behind Patrick Baumgartner. Markus Schreichel is going down. He does by 800ths of a second. Baumgartner will clamber one up the order. Well, they started slightly faster, came down slightly slower. Markus Schreichel not having his best weekend here on his home track of Innsbruck. Yesterday's race finished in 18th position. His best here, 11th, a couple of seasons ago. Well, he'll definitely improve on 18th. He's the leader with 13, no he's not, he's third with 13 sleds to go, so no worse than 16th. It is a bit of an improvement on yesterday. So Patrick Baumgartner leads as we get to Oskars Melbardis. Patrick Baumgartner, our first youth Olympic champion in boys bobsleigh, the race leader. And our 2014 four-man Olympic champion, Oskars Melbardis. Bronze medalist in Pyeongchang in the two-man, of course, Melbardis as well. Let's see what they've got to start. 5:23. 5:19 in the first heat. I think the visibility for the drivers, easy for me to say, would be better than it probably is for the cameras. The human eye tends to be quite a lot better than cameras in low light. .98.7 best speed into the Kreisel for the veteran Latvian. 1500s, he's starting to regain his first heat advantage over Patrick Baumgartner, but a slide from 9 to 10. Decent height in 10. 2/10 up, here we go. Now, can he build on that advantage to the line? He does indeed. 2900s up, 52.19. Hasn't done much racing here in Innsbruck in the last couple of years, so he will make up for that in these couple of weekends. Oskars Melbardis, always a quietly spoken giant of a man. Tends to let his driving do the talking. Late steer off 9. You saw the flop into the track and then the skid from 9 to 10. Again, look at those runners just shattering over the ice. That was the Latvian gesticulation for, oh goodness gracious. And again, look, as you get on the brakes, the runners are just nowhere near touching the ice at the front. Ivo Brown and Yanko Francis. Yanko with that ankle taped up. Don't want any injuries there. Voice of coach Tom Delahunty. 12th place after the first heat. 12th best start from these two guys. And Yanko not looking entirely comfortable in the first couple of steps away from the block. Now, whether that's his technique or whether that's just that right Achilles just being a bit sore. Tenth of a second up for Ivo Brown, ahead of Oskars Melbardis. 15th in yesterday's race. That matched his career best here. So if he can stay in front of the Latvian, this will be a best race result for him in a two-man here in Innsbruck. And he is dangerously close to being well up in the top 10. He's in this huge log jam of sleds, 700s back. It all went away down at the bottom. We've got a group of sleds from 6 basically down to 15th, covered by 0.2 of a second. It's easy to make some of that. It's very easy to lose quite a lot of that just in one run. Late steer off 9, hung it up, realized it was too late. Hits the wall on the inside coming down to 10. You see the rear runners come off the deck and you can see Yanko Francis, who must be 100 kilos, being bounced out of the sled. And again, watch the sled climb here. Holding that line through 14, the finish corner. Yanko popping up, hauling on the brakes here before the final corner. Dankjewel. Next up, Meyer of Austria. Another borrowed Belgian sled for him, with Danut Moldovan behind him, another borrowed Belgian. Started 5:24 in the first heat, these two. A quick little chat with Elizabeth Meyer between the heats. She said not quite sure what happened to their start. 5:25 here as well. Not what perhaps they were starting yesterday. 500s up. This is going to be a very tough battle for all of these athletes. Still 500s up on Oskars Melbardis. You're going to need speed below the Kreisel to stay in front of the Latvian, though. And a rattle from 9 to 10. That's given away most of that time. Needs top speed. He's late in the labyrinth. Not going to make it at the line. He doesn't. 600s back, 52.30. So Melbardis moves up again. So Meyer drops to second position by 600ths of a second, ahead of Ivo Brown, Patrick Baumgartner, and Michael Vogt. Off 9. Again, a little late and a flop off onto the track. That was late, wasn't it? So Benny Meyer in second place with 10 to go. Oskars Melbardis is our race leader. Benny Meyer, Ivo de Bruin within 700ths of him, and we still have a tight group of sleds to come in the top 10. So there's been a little bit of sled swapping going on. As we heard a little earlier, Tom Delahunty was saying that a number of the Belgian sleds are being used at the moment. The Austrians have been testing one of the Belgian sleds. One Spanky, Benny Meyer today driving a championship-winning two-man sled that was used by Francesco Friedrich, then by the Belgians. And yesterday driving Anne van Nieuwenhuizen's old sled. So trying to change things around, see what works, what doesn't. So in fact, it's Lamindine in Benny's old Valna sled. That was the championship-winning one. There's a look at the brakes inside the sled. Not the world's most sophisticated things. They just dig into the ice. When you pull the handles, they come down through the bottom of the sled and they dig in deep and hard. Support there for the backrest. As the Swiss sled gets put onto the ice a minute before it's due to start. Loose start on the side there, coming down in where we get to turn one. Oskars Melbardis in the leader's box. And Melbardis in 13th place after the first heat. And where was he from? Sixth position, he was 1300ths behind sixth, back in 13th place. That's how tight this midfield pack is. They're leaving the tiny finish dock. Sleds going on to the van, and they'll be taken down to the lower car park where all the team trucks are. Second heat, race 6, the BMW IBSF two-man bobsleigh World Cup. We are in Innsbruck in Austria. It's a bit of a cloudy afternoon as we get Simon Friedli in the top 10 with Greg Jones behind him. Current leader, Oskars Melbardis, finished in 13th place after the first heat, just 600ths of a second slower than these guys. 5:16 getaway, that gives them another 600, 700s in their pocket ahead of Melbardis, and they may need all of that. The veteran Latvian was flying at the bottom of the track. Simon Friedli, a former brakeman, 99 kilometers an hour, and still a little misty, foggy out. Let's see what he's got as he comes down from corner 9 to 10. Nice high parabola, using that to slingshot his way down into the labyrinth. Good speed on board, still 1400s up. Is he the man that puts Melbardis out of the leader's box? He is. 52.17 for him, and that guarantees him a top 10 result here in Innsbruck. So he finished in 11th yesterday. Will be no worse than 10th place here. Silver medalist in Sigulda in February this year. Crashed out of contention on day 1. Took silver on day 2. Little late here, off 11, off 12 rather, bumps, or off 11 bumps into 12. Gets it back under control. That would have taken a little bit of speed out of the sled. Simon Friedli is the leader, though. And next up, we have another dead heat. Latvia's Ralphs Berzins and Edgars Nemeth are tied to the 100th with Romain Heinrich of France. They have 2 whole hundredths of a second of a first-round advantage over Simon Friedli. So basically, from 6th to 15th down, the gaps were so tiny, you can effectively count it as a one-heat race with a level start between these guys. A 100th or 2, let's say that's the reaction out of the blocks. It's an 8-sled wide sprint field. Ralphs Berzins Gets away 5:11. That's a very good start. That was the 4th best start in the first heat. That is the fastest start we've seen so far. So he sits down 700s ahead of Simon Friedli. Maintains that, had good velocity through the first speed trap and into the upper labyrinth. 600s up at the Kreisel. 3rd best speed onto the Kreisel. How did he fare? 2nd best speed off the Kreisel. Looks like it was a good corner 7 for him. Into 10. Nice exit into the labyrinth. 11, 12, 13. Flying at you fast as you like out of the final corner. And 400s is the margin. He's doubled his first round advantage. He found 500s of a second compared to his first heat. So too did Simon Friedli. But Friedli was 200s slower in the first heat, had another 200s from the second. Good run through the Kreisel. Melbardis and Berzins both flying at that part of the track. Melbardis with the top speed all the way down from the Kreisel. So maybe these newer sleds do have just a little bit smoother way of cleaving through the air. Some of our athletes drive in gloves, some don't. Most of the brakemen do use gloves because the handles on the back and the handles, the tiny little grab handles they hang on to inside tend not to be warm in these near or sub-zero temperatures. Romain Heinrich of France tied to the 100 with Ralph Berzins. Steven Montenacker, his brakeman. 5:21 first heat. Let's see if they can find a little more at the start. Even 100th might make the difference. 5:19, 200s quicker. So that's 800s slower than Berzins at the start rather than the 10th, which is what they were in the first heat. They were tied at the bottom. So this does need to be a nice, smooth run from Romain Heinrich. Looking good so far, the Frenchman. Finished in 13th place yesterday. And unless there is a disaster, he's going to improve on that today. Really anxious to get back into regular top 10 contention. An 8th place finish would definitely help. 1300s back on Berzins though. And this is not about losing 1 place, it's about losing 3 spots. 52.27. They are so tightly grouped. He drops down to 3rd place. With 7 to go, it will still be a top 10 finish, but he's frustrated not to at least hold that 8th position. Père Duplass lost 2 places. And here's part of where it went away from 9 down to 10. Little tag on the wall with that left front bunk. And gets a little too much early height in 10. Has to steer more than he wants to get it down where he needs.
It's close. Close race.
Très proche. Next up, Brad Hall of Great Britain. With Greg Cackett, took a silver medal here in January 2020. Finished 7th place yesterday. And that was with a strong start. They've had a good start here. 6th quickest getaway, 7th quickest getaway in the first heat. And some good driving lines. 5:14, quicker again in the second heat. Brad Hall not entirely fit at the beginning of the season. .800s ahead of Ralph Berzins. Their lead from the first heat was 400s of a second. No mistakes allowed. 1200s up. Best speed into the Kreisel. Good exit as well. Brought it down early, but not too early. Late though off 9, but gets it straight down into 10. Still in the green. 1800s of a second up. This could be a top 6 run from Brad Hall. Can he move up the order again? Well, a 51.97 means that he will be no worse than 7th place, which is where he finished yesterday. So, that was all right. That's official bobsled terminology, that is. Well, very good stuff from Brad Hall and Greg Cackett, finding another couple of hundreds in the start. Always important. And just a little rocking and rolling down through the lower labyrinth. 7th place with Nick Gleeson yesterday. Nick's first race since the World Championships in Whistler. But that seems just like so long ago. This year's World Championships were due to be in Lake Placid. Because of the current unpleasantness, of course, we can't go to North America. That decision was made a long while ago. So they will be back in Altenburg. Top 6 time here in Innsbruck. Christoph Hafer with Christian Hummers behind him. Christian having his first race of the weekend. Oh, and they just about avoid the short wall on the inside, 5.20. That would have been like jumping on the brake pedal. They'd hit the short wall there. They had 300s in hand over Brad Hall from the first heat. And 1700s back. The start wasn't as quick as the British sled. They lost speed, and they continue to lose speed. Christoph Hafer not having a great run here. 6th place yesterday, 6th place in the first heat. 1400s, he stopped the bleeding, but how much has he got at the bottom? Is there enough ice left? No, there is not. Brad Hall, top 6, improves at least 1 spot on yesterday. Nobody likes to come across the line in the second heat and not see the #1 finger being held up, which means you've at least held your place, but that could have been a lot worse. A lot worse. Don't remember now who it was. We saw somebody hitting that short wall where the luge track comes in on the driver's left in the first start. Not good news at all. A good run down from 9 to 10, but the speed was gone by that stage. So 5 sleds to go. Brad Hall of Great Britain leads from Christoph Hafer and Ralf Berzins of Latvia. 4th place yesterday for Dominik Dvorak of the Czech Republic. He was tied then with Michael Vogt. Michael Vogt currently lies in 10th place with 5 to go. A very different day for the Swiss, but a very similar day for the Czechs here. Dvorak with Jakub Nošek again behind him. And they are 400ths off 4th place. Medals are a way away. They're 3/10 away from a medal. But for Dvorak, first job will be to beat Brad Hall. Brad was a 10th behind after the first heat. And the Czech crew start 5:12 to 5:14 of the Brits, so they've got a little bit of a faster start, a bit more speed to carry. The gap has come down. It was a 10th before the run. It is down to 700ths of a second. Brad Hall had good speed at the top of the track, down to the Kreisel. He's the fastest sled so far. So Dvorak needs to make the bottom half of the track perfect to stay in the green, down to 400ths of a second. How close is this going to be? Are we going to have Dvorak in another tie? No, he's 100th in front. 100th of a second in front. So that means guaranteed a top 5 finish for Dominik Dvorak. Yesterday shared 4th place with Michael Vogt. He is having a good week here in Innsbruck. Dvorak 8th, 10th, 6th and 10th in Sigulda, 4th and no worse than 5th here today. Well, his career best result, 4th place in Sigulda 2 years ago and in Innsbruck 24 hours ago. And the only man that will stop him replicating that is Rostislav Gaitiukevich. Silver medalist in the 2-man junior worlds this year, gold medalist in the 4-man junior worlds, the 22-year-old Russian. But everything you see about him, he could be Francesco Friedrich. He looks physically like him. He smiles when he's around a bobsled track. He just is such an exuberant character. And this kid can drive. 5.11 getaway. That's the fastest of the field so far. So he clearly, like Friedrich, has athleticism as well. You're watching a young potential star in the making. Whoa, tags the inside, coming down early off the Kreisel. Still has the best speed. There's something different about his sled. And look at the way he sits in it. Look at the heads. Where is his head? He must be driving with his eyebrows. He's sitting so low in the sled, barely looking around the peak. And across the line, 52.05, he takes the lead. He will be no worse than 4th place. Woohoo! You can hear him howling. And Ilya Malik, who is not a man who is given to much expression of any kind. This kid brings him alive. Ilya Malik is as straight poker-faced a man as you could not wish to play poker against. I don't know what his poker is like, but his poker face is 100%. And that might have been the mistake that cost him a medal. If this kid doesn't win a medal before the season is out, then I don't know what on earth is going on. He really has what it's all about. Yeah. Proud Russian team. So we get to our final 3 sleds. They are the same 3 drivers as yesterday, just not necessarily in the same order. Bronze medalist 24 hours ago was Oskars Kibermanis, again with Mats Miknes behind him. Second best start in the first heat, 5.06, and they find anything to help their attack on gold. 5.05, it all helps. Now they shouldn't worry about the current leader, Rostislav Gaitiukevich, because he was 3 tenths behind him. This is all about gold. 3,500s up on Gaitiukevich. Best speed we've seen so far at the top of the track, still from Brad Hall. 3,800s up. I'm not liking the speed we're seeing at the side. The gap is still growing though. It's enough to take a medal. It's not enough to win this race. Across the line he comes. I have a feeling that is bronze only for Oskars Kibermanis, but he is in the medals again for the 2nd time this weekend. And that will be only his 3rd medal of the season. Bearing in mind, this is a double winner in Sigulda a couple of years ago. He only had 1 medal in 4 starts on his home track in November. It is a 2nd medal here in Innsbruck in 24 hours for Oskars Kibermanis, but he is going to require assistance from the final 2 sleds if it's to be more than bronze. And they don't tend to give things away too often. Hansi Lochner, yesterday's race winner, with Christian Rasp now back behind him after Eric Franke pulled a muscle in yesterday's winning push start. Didn't deflect the crew much. Hansi led by 1,800s over Francesco Friedrich in the first heat yesterday, drove away from Friedrich to win by 3/10. He lies just 500ths behind him. Hansi yesterday saying his key to success was carrying the speed of the start through the early corners. And that's what he needs to do again. This is as close to a dead heat as you want to be with Francesco Friedrich. Friedrich doesn't often let you come from behind and beat him. But yesterday, Johannes Lochner had something in these early corners, and that is silky smooth. Look at those transitions, nice from 6 to 7. Second best speed, that's the best sled behind Brad Hall. 1700s up. He's creeping away. Oh, 9 to 10's not great. Friedrich has had a mistake there in each of his 3 runs so far, though. Speed at the bottom might decide it. What's he got? 120 plus. Across the line, Lochner with a 51.80. 1500s slower than his first heat. Kibermanis came down 1400 slower than his first heat. So Lochner adds another 900s to his advantage, but is it enough? That means basically that Friedrich has to go a 10th slower to lose this race. It's possible. Track is not helping, maybe. Nice looking load there. Here we go, exit 9. Just a fraction late. And the rear walks off the turn as the nose hits corner 9, the outrunner corner 9. Well, Hansi in the medals again, but what colour will it be? After 6 years of consecutive victories here for Francesco Friedrich and Torsten Margis, yesterday they were beaten into the silver medal position after being in the bronze medal spot after the first heat. So he drove himself back into silver. Now, if he picks up one more spot, he'll drive himself into gold. 5:04 first heat, 5:03 second heat. You can always rely on these two, indeed on Francesco and anybody, to find a little more in the second start. So he added 400s at the start to his 500s over Johannes Lochner. And another 100th now. Best speed so far. As quick as Brad Hall. That's quicker than Johannes was by 0.2 km an hour. Same speed as Lochner here. Whoa, and a bigger skid from 9 to 10, and he's right up high in 10, late off 10. Into the labyrinth, he's going to have to work hard to get it back under control. He's got enough in hand, though. It is going to be victory for Francesco Friedrich. 1600ths of a second ahead of Johannes Lochner. And it is a 1-2 for Germany. The old rivals again battling for supremacy. Even Stevens this weekend. Gold and silver for Johannes Lochner. Silver and now gold for Francesco Friedrich. So a 7th win in Innsbruck in 7 years, but in 8 races. So the streak was broken. Unlike in men's skeleton, where Martin Stuckers won his 12th consecutive race on this track, including the 2016 Worlds, which Francesco won here as well. Well, 2 big starts, the best of the competition, and the 2 fastest runs down this Innsbruck track as well for Francesco Friedrich and Torsten Margis. Yesterday, 3rd in the first heat, 2nd in the second heat. Today, they led both trips, but it was closer. So victory for Francesco Friedrich, silver for Johannes Lochner, Oskars Kibermanis again in the bronze. Best race of the season for Rostislav Gaitiukevich, his career-high 4th place ahead of Dominik Dvorak and Brad Hall, 7th yesterday, 6th today. Christoph Hafer in 7th ahead of Ralf Berzins, and then Simon Friedli and Romain Heinrich rounding out the top 10. Melbardis tying with Heinrich. Benny Meyer, Ivo de Bruin, Patrick Baumgartner, Michael Vogt, 4th equal yesterday, 15th today. Don't know what happened as the wheels fell off the Swiss wagon there. Marcus Schreichel, Mattia Variola, Alexey Stulnev, Lamindine and Mihai Tentea round out the top 20. Well, another Francesco Friedrich performance, wasn't it? 500s ahead at the end of the first heat. He opened that up to a 1600th of a second advantage. And Johannes Lochner could not find, maybe Johannes Lochner did find the pace he found yesterday. Maybe Friedrich just found a lot more than he had yesterday. But look at that, backing it into corner 10. That's a very un-Francesco Friedrich drive, but he wins again. So Francesco Friedrich now with 142 career victories in the World Cup in all disciplines, 2 and 4 man. He leads the World Cup rankings from his compatriot. Kibermanis still third, ahead of, in fact, moves up to third ahead of Mihai Vogt and Christoph Hafer. Vogt drops down to 5th position with today's result. And some of our new-coming athletes, Melbardis, Gaitiukevich, Hall and Meyer also now firmly up in the points reckoning. They didn't go and do the 4 races in Sigulda, and that's always going to be a bit of an issue for the rest of the season. Well, that's it for the first weekend of action here from Innsbruck in Austria. The teams remain here. They train next week and race next weekend. Men and women's skeleton, the women's bobsleigh, and a double 2-man weekend. From me, Martin Haven, and the IBSF TV crew, thanks for being with us. We look forward to your company next weekend. Until then, from all of us from Innsbruck, it's Auf Wiedersehen and goodbye.